Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Stephen Edger. I'm with the Department of Secondary and Middle School Education. I'd like to introduce my colleagues today.
Hi, I'm Rob Caples. I'm from the Educational Technology and Literacy Department.
And I am Pam Siegel, and I am from Secondary and Middle School Education.
And we're real excited to talk to you today a little bit about the digital initiative that we're looking at. It's called the Digital Literacy Initiative. And in conjunction with that, we're going to talk a little bit about a tool called the Pad Wheel. Rob, would you talk to us a little?
Thanks, Stephen. First, a little bit about the initiative. It's come to, what we've been working on here for the past few months is the idea that we want to be able to integrate instructional technology strategies and literacies into all of our methodology courses, as opposed to having technology stand as a standalone or siloed course. With that being said, what we've tried to do, and I've worked with Stephen and with Pam, is to work with them and to identify issues or areas within their syllabi and specific methodology courses where technology can be better integrated. And the idea here and the overarching process or the purpose of the project is to sort of virtually hold hands and take advantage of our combined expertise to make sure that technology is effectively integrated in all of these courses.
Pam, how do you plan on using the pedagogy wheel in your class?
So what we've been doing as a group is I teach MSED 460, which is the first reading course that the middle school teachers have to take in order to be certified. And so part of this class is about, well, all of it is about literacy and the literacies of their content area. And what we found when we started working together is one of the best parts about this class is that it's taught in the middle school classroom, right? So we're at Middle River Middle School every week. And what's great is that the students actually get to interact with middle school students. What comes from that is that they understand the importance of being creative and using different types of literacies. And so what we did was we've put this project together, which we're calling there's an app for that, right? Is that what we decided? There's an app for that, is the assignment. And what Rob is doing and what we're doing as a group is we're taking that pad wheel that he's going to explain about in a minute, and my students are going through and looking at the different apps that are offered, and they are essentially creating like a blog or a summary of these apps and how they would be used in their content area. The second part of this is that they are going to be using some of these apps in their actual teaching. At the end of the semester, Steve and I worked together to create an assignment called a micro teaching, and the students teach for 45 minutes in groups. And with that, they will be using one of these apps that they have been learning about. So not only are we going to be talking about it, they're going to be writing about it, but they're actually going to be using it. So the assignment has become not just something where they learn about technology and we learn about technology, but there is an actual practical application of it, and that's what I think is the most important part of.
Rob, could you take a minute or two and show us?
Excuse me, I'll walk all the way over here.
Here, I'll move this out of the way.
You got it.
You got it, yeah.
Okay, thanks guys. As you go through this is called the Pedagogy Wheel, and this was created by a guy named Richard Carrington from the University of Adelaide in Australia. And as you can see this, it looks very complicated and very complex. However, basically what I've done is, as every good teacher will do, you take what you need and you leave the rest. So let's take a second and I'll go through this as it applies to the students in Pam's class and how she's using it specifically and how it works. First of all, we're going to ignore all these things, these peripherals on the outside. We're going to start sort of almost in the very center of this. And actually I'm going to start with this inner wheel right here. And this, if you look closely, and I'm not sure how well it pulls together on the camera, but this is the Bloom's taxonomy domains. Okay, and so what we're finding, and many of my students in the past have had issues understanding these domains and how it applies in context to developing a lesson. So it's nice that this wheel starts with this in the very center of it because it's sort of the fulcrum of the whole issue. Beyond that, and if you think moving outside to in layers or levels, we have action verbs that relate to each one of these specific Bloom's taxonomy domains. I'm going to stay with this green one because it's up toward the top. Okay, the second one is the action verbs, and these are action verbs, and these are verbs that are specific to helping students develop clear objectives that are measurable. So as you look at this and say, okay, if I'm in the remember or the remember domain, these are action verbs that are going to be, that will help me develop a very clear point to my lesson. The layer above that would be the activities. These would be the activities that are aligned with the action verbs, which again align to the domain. So it all kinds of fit together in a nice pattern. The biggest advantage of the pad wheel that we found, and it's been pure luck that we found it, it was just by happenstance last summer when I was doing my research that I found it. But the last and the most important piece, I think, for our discussion today is the applications that are here that align with the activities that you're using, that align with the action verbs of your objectives, which align with the domains in Bloom's. So it's a sort of a visual connecting piece that allows students to very clearly see exactly what app supports these activities, which supports the objectives, which supports the domain. Beyond that, and this is, trust me, a discussion for another day, is the SAMR model, which is a educational technology framework of the levels of technology integration. But it basically stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. That's a tale for another day, so we're going to save that one. But for today's discussion, this outlook right here is the most effective way that we've seen, and we've shared this with Pam, and her students seem to be enjoying this. And an example I could give you would be, let's say you're taking one of my favorite books of Mice and Men, and you're in this category here. So you want to say, the students are going to describe what Boo Radley would look like. I'm going to describe what Boo Radley looks like using a blog. Okay, I'm going to use a blog, and then I'm going to come over here and find the app that is a blog. So it kind of is a nice, not linear, but it's kind of a nice process for a student and a teacher to say, okay, here's an objective, here's an activity that I can use, and here's an application that aligns with that.
So in my principals class, for example, one of the things that they're responsible for doing is writing a lesson plan. Our students really struggle with how do you infuse technology into a lesson plan in a meaningful way, beyond just PowerPoint or YouTube. Right. Here's the answer to that dilemma right here.
And I think the other part of this too is that my class has every content area. So we have science, we have math, we have English, we have history. And a lot of times I think they get stuck in what's only used and what other people only use in math, right? Rather than exploring how these other aspects can be used. And we were talking about it today even more in detail, is that my class is a literacy course. So it's not only the literacy of your content area, but it's the literacy of using technology and your content area. So how do you use these to benefit your students in the aspect of disciplinary literacy? So how do they learn about math, but also how do they learn about the language? How do they learn about the actions that take place in math? And that's one of the things about exploring the technology, is that it gives their students another opportunity to see and to sort of like go above and beyond just that basic without technology, I guess, kind of world that so many are used to.
One of my students, and as we discussed this in class yesterday, they talked about the fact, wouldn't it be cool to come up with a pad wheel that was directly related to their content area? Now all of a sudden, these are more generic. You start taking apps that might be related to, say, social science, and then you could create your own pad wheel based on that.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah, I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific idea, and I think that's for next fall.
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing to think about. I like it.
I think, and in closing with this particular model, I think it's important for everybody to understand that this is just a one way to get the technology across. Right. This isn't the way, this isn't the silver bullet, this isn't the one be all end all kind of application. This is one way to get it across. Right. It's important that we have our learners as 21st century learners. They know how to collaborate and contribute on a global level. But for here right now where we are, where we are within the project, we think this is a really good place to start. We think there's a lot of advantages here, and so far I think we're doing pretty well with things.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for more from the Digital Literacy Initiative. Thank you.